Taongi Atoll, the silent sentinel of the north. To the wanderer of the digital age, Taongi Atoll, also known as Bokak Atoll, remains a ghost in the machine, a place so remote and so untouched that it exists more as a legend than a location. As a travel writer, one must approach this northernmost tip of the Marshall Islands with a sense of reverence. It is a microscopic dot in the vast expanse of the Pacific, a crescent of coral and sand that has defied the permanence of human footsteps for centuries. To understand Taongi is to understand the profound silence of the deep ocean, where the only clock is the tide and the only visitors are the winds. The geography of Taongi is a study in extreme isolation. It is the northernmost atoll of the Ratak Sunrise chain, situated roughly 2,200 miles from the bustling shores of Hawaii. The atoll is comprised of approximately 10 small islands, including Sibilla, Kamwom, Budij, Pokak and Bokwaya, which curve like a protective arm around a shallow turquoise lagoon. This lagoon is a rare geological curiosity. Its entrance channel is remarkably shallow, and the lagoon itself sits slightly elevated, creating a self-contained world that is difficult for any significant vessel to penetrate. The total land area is a mere 3.2 square kilometres, making it a fragile sanctuary clinging to the surface of the sea. What truly defines the shores of Taongi is its role as a natural archive of the Pacific, a concept often described as gifts from the waves. Because of its position within the complex intersection of the North Equatorial Current and the Equatorial Countercurrent, the atoll acts as a giant catchment for objects drifting across the ocean. Over the decades, researchers have documented an incredible array of materials washed onto its beaches, far from their points of origin. North American timber, massive cut fir logs, and redwood trunks from California are frequently found bleached by the sun on Taongi's sand volcanic artifacts. Large amounts of pumice from the 1883 explosion of Krakatau in Indonesia have been discovered here, alongside obsidian from Tulaman Island in the Bismarck Archipelago, cultural debris, everything from Japanese glass, floats, to modern sailboat hulls, from Kiribati, and even rubber dinghies from downed World War II bombers have eventually found their final resting place on these lonely. The landscape of Taongi offers a stark contrast to the lush, emerald images typically associated with tropical islands. It is a place of harsh beauty, defined by its aridity. While other Marshallese atolls are famous for their towering coconut palms and breadfruit trees, Taongi is too dry to sustain such life. It lacks what scientists call a Gibbon-Hetzberg lens, a layer of fresh groundwater that usually floats atop the denser saltwater beneath an atoll. Without this vital resource, the coconut palms that are the lifeblood of the Pacific cannot survive here. Instead, the flora of Taongi consists of a resilient, salt-tolerant community of scrub and low-lying vegetation. These plants have adapted to a life of relentless sun and minimal rainfall, clinging to the thin, sandy soil with stubborn persistence. Undisturbed ecosystem, because the atoll was bypassed by ancient Melanesian settlers and subsequent colonial powers due to its lack of water, its ecosystem remains in a remarkably pristine state. Scientific value for botanists. Taongi is a living laboratory, a rare example of a dry atoll that has never been altered by permanent human habitation or large-scale agriculture. Natural defence. The dense scrub provides a crucial windbreak and stabilising force for the islets, preventing the encroaching sea from reclaiming the fragile sandbars during the fierce storms that occasionally sweep the Ratak chain. For the animal kingdom, the very features that make Taongi inhospitable to humans make it a paradise. The atoll is a vital refuge for species that require isolation to thrive. During the 1988 environmental survey, Researchers confirmed that Taongi is one of the most important nesting grounds for migratory seabirds in the entire Central Pacific. The skies above the atoll are often filled with the calls of thousands of birds who find safety on islets like Sibylla and Pokak, where they are free from the threat of invasive species often brought by human settlement. Avian diversity. The atoll supports a massive population of nesting seabirds that utilize the scrubby vegetation and open beaches for their rookeries. Marine giants, the lagoon, though shallow and difficult to enter, is a haven for giant clams and a diverse array of reef fish that have never known the pressure of commercial fishing. Ancient travelers, the soft, remote beaches of Taongi are critical nesting sites for the green sea turtle. These ancient voyagers return to these specific shores, drawn by the same currents that carry the drift timber, to lay their eggs in a place where they are unlikely to be disturbed. The silence of Taongi was famously interrupted by a tragedy that has become one of the Pacific's most enduring mysteries. On February 11, 1979, a 17-foot Boston whaler named the Sarah Joe disappeared after leaving Hana, Maui. On board were 5 fishermen, including Scott Moorman, who sailed into a sudden and violent storm. Despite an extensive 5-day search by the Coast Guard, no trace of the boat or its crew was found in Hawaiian waters. 9.5 years later, on September 10, 1988, the boat was miraculously found sitting on the shore of Taongi, over 2,000 miles away from where it vanished. The discovery, a marine biologist, John Norton, stumbled upon the wreck during an environmental survey of the atoll. The boat's Hawaiian registration was still clearly visible on the fiberglass hull. The grave, near the boat, Norton found a simple grave, a cross made of driftwood atop a pile of stones. Beneath the sand, a few bones were discovered, which forensic testing later confirmed were the remains of Scott Moorman. The unsolved riddle, the presence of a grave, implies human intervention. Some speculate that a Chinese fishing crew, operating illegally in the area, found the remains and buried them out of respect. Yet, the fate of the other 4 men and the identity of those who buried Scott Moorman remain a mystery to this day. Taongi's history is a timeline of being claimed and then promptly forgotten. Since its European discovery by Alonso de Salazar in 1526, it has been a nominal possession of Spain, Germany, Japan, and finally the United States as part of a UN strategic trusteeship. The atoll even had a brush with nuclear history. In the 1950s, the University of California Radiation Laboratory, UCRL, considered Taongi as a site for nuclear testing during Operation Hardtack. They proposed detonating devices to excavate the lagoon and deepen the entrance. Fortunately, the plan was abandoned for budgetary reasons, sparing the atoll the environmental devastation seen on Bikini and Enewetak. The Dominion fraud. In more recent history, Taongi was the subject of a bizarre political scam. An American named Mark Pendley created the Dominion of Melchizedek, a spurious nation used for tax evasion. He claimed to have leased the atoll from a Marshallese paramount chief, but the Republic of the Marshall Islands and the US government successfully prosecuted Pendley for fraud. Current status. Today, Taongi is a part of the Republic of the Marshall Islands. It remains uninhabited, protected by its isolation and its status as a place of immense natural and historical importance. Modern echoes. The last time Taongi truly engaged with the world was in 2003, when ham radio operators set up a temporary station for a few hours before the atoll slipped back into its customary obscurity.